Welcome to the Breakthrough Success Podcast, helping you achieve that breakthrough you've always been looking for in your business. And now your host, Marc Guberti.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Marc Guberti, and this is the podcast for marketers and small business owners who are looking for the breakthrough for their businesses. I'm very excited about this show. We are going to explore Kindle Publishing with our guest, Steve Scott. Steve has self-published over 60 Kindle books and makes six figures from those Kindle books each year. It is my pleasure to welcome Steve to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Marc.
My pleasure, Steve. So, my first question for you is, what exactly got you into self-publishing? How does the Steve Scott empire start? I kind of given this story a number of times at different podcasts. I don't want to beat a dead horse if anyone's listened to previous episodes or listened to different interviews. But I got into self-publishing because I had a blog that it had some traffic, it had some income, but I was just kind of spinning my wheels. I spent a lot of effort writing article after article. So I looked at self-publishing and specifically Kindle Publishing as a way to drive traffic to my blog. And this is back in February 2012. So I kind of made the rookie mistake of putting a bunch of blog posts together, and I just threw it up on Amazon, and it really didn't go anywhere. So I didn't really think this whole self-publishing thing really had any legs, so I decided to move on to different ideas. But I decided to kind of try it again a few months later. So this would have been July of 2012. And I decided to kind of do the same thing. I took a couple of old blog posts and put them together, threw up on Amazon. But the only difference this time is I decided to leverage the KDP Select program, which is kind of Amazon's marketing engine designed to help you sell books. And what I did from there is I just simply ran a free promotion on my first book and gave it away for 5 days. And the interesting thing is I came back from vacation. This is right after 4th of July vacation. And I noticed that the first book was selling around 5 to 7 sales a day, which is about $10 to $15 a profit. Now, this isn't a lot of money, but it gave me the kind of that seed, that kernel of an idea of, all right, what if I actually sat down and instead of just devoting myself to a blog, what if I actually just decided to write one book after another and just you kind of use books as a publishing platform and just focus on that instead of anything else? What would happen then? So I actually just through 2012, the rest of 2012, 2013, 14, and into 2016, my primary income has been from just self-publishing, primarily through the Kindle platform, but also on a few other book platforms, and also audiobooks and print books. But yeah, I make a full-time income. I have over 60 books now, so it's definitely been a great business model, and I just love the possibilities that's available through self-publishing. Those possibilities are awesome for the ability to generate the passive income and all that fun stuff. But you were talking earlier about how you came back from the vacation, you saw a few daily sales, and you thought, I'm going to take this seriously. What were you thinking about that path in front of you when you decided to take the Kindle books seriously?
That I guess the path in my head, and it did kind of prove to be true, was where I was actually sitting down and doing consistent effort. And I didn't mind the hard work, but it just seemed like I was spinning my wheels and I was spending a lot of time just writing stuff that it would get some social media shares and it would get some comments, but at the end of the day, it wasn't generating any income. So in my head, the path ahead of me was just, all right, if I can just commit to pretty much writing a few hours every single day and just making that my primary activity, what would happen? And I did have an affiliate marketing business in the background that I knew that if for some reason this turned out to be a catastrophe and things didn't work out as planned, I would always be able to fall back on that. And actually about a year or so ago, I actually shut down my last affiliate marketing website and I've just fully devoted to self-publishing. But I guess in my head, I was able to make a pivot knowing that I definitely had a fallback. So I guess a lesson to be learned here is it's okay to treat self-publishing or pretty much any online business as a side hobby. And what I would recommend is not to do what I did initially when I got into running an internet business. This is back in 2004. I just decided to quit my job and just dive in 100% without having any sort of safety net. So I wouldn't recommend that strategy because I made a lot of mistakes. I put myself into debt, and it was just a lot of bad moves on my part. So I guess the point here is make sure you do have a safety net and you can work on this as a side thing. Work on it, an hour or two a day, just as long as you're focusing on the right activities.
So when you say the right activities, what exactly do you mean by that? For
writing the content and driving the sales?
I would say the right activities is find your kind of 80-20. And I definitely talk about this way too much. I feel like a parrot. I'm always saying the same thing over and over, but it really is true. The 80-20 is what are the 20% activities that generate 80% of your results. So when it comes to self-publishing, I find that the few driving factors are you have to create consistent content. So that involves just sitting down every single day, having a target amount of words that you have to create. So I would say at the bare minimum, I try to shoot for at least 30 minutes of writing every single day. But a lot of times that kind of snowballs into 3 to 4 hours of writing. I just try to make writing a priority part of my day. Another important thing is to build an email list. It doesn't really matter what online business venture you're trying to get into. Email marketing should be your primary consideration. And I would say you should get even more granular than just having an email list. I would recommend having an email list for each of your audience. And that's something that I'm starting to kind of morph into right now is I'm actually building out email funnels for each of my specific audiences. So for instance, anyone that's interested in productivity, I will have a specialized email sequence for those people. And anyone that's interested in decluttering have their own series of emails. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to not only serve them the kind of content that they want, I'm also trying to promote offers that are kind of related to that. And that's just a great way to kind of fully leverage not only the book sales that you get, but also generate income on the back end. Now, those are two things. And also I would recommend you try to generate as many sales as possible from kind of the book discoverability engine. So I know there's a person in my space that his name is Mark Dawson. He does really well with Facebook ads. Now I find that Facebook ads don't really work well for me, but when I get promotions on a book site called bookbub.com, which is pretty much the book promotion website, I find that generates a ton of sales in a short amount of time. So the point here is you want to have a good funnel for your books. You want to make sure you're doing a consistent habit and releasing quality content on a regular basis, but you also want to find a way to drive traffic to your books that kind of can really move the needle and generate a lot of sales in a short amount of time.
You've said in a lot of your articles and podcast episodes that the email list is the most critical part of building a Kindle empire. So what's the best method you have for us to grow a highly targeted email list that we can engage with these people and then eventually promote our books to?
I would say spend time creating a specialized piece of content for each of your email funnels. Now, the mistake I made, I feel, is for a long time, I kind of relied on my main lead magnet, which is 77 Good Habits to Live a Better Life. And that generated a decent amount of traffic. But at the end of the day, I couldn't really create targeted emails because I didn't really know exactly who my audience was. And that was a serious misstep on my part because I just didn't know how to speak to different audiences. And once you have emails that are just kind of lukewarm, they don't really get to the point, they don't really they don't really scratch a need that people have, your emails tend to not get opened as often and you don't really get people responding to your specific target offers. So my big piece of recommendation is to create not only a lead magnet, but also a very highly valuable piece of content. So for one of the books I'm currently developing, it's I don't want to give away the topic right now, but it's basically 170 resources for this one particular habit. And actually, I spent a lot of time, and actually, it's almost another book unto itself. So it's going to be this 9,000 word piece of content that they can download for free as long as they join my email list. And then from there, I could serve them specific target offers that are related to that particular habit. So my piece of advice is to actually spend the time to whereas in the past, I would say you can bang out a book in 3 to 4 weeks. I would recommend maybe spend 6 to 7 weeks. Make sure you have a good quality book and a good quality piece of content, and just build out individual funnels for each of those audiences. And at the end of the day, you can also at the end of your sequence, you can recommend other books that are similarly related to that particular topic. And that's just a way to fully leverage a book funnel. But I find that's what's really working for me in 2016.
Yeah, it's good to have all those different book offerings to diversify. Do you feel like when you offer your books, you're diversifying too much, or you're able to keep them centered around a single niche?
I find that it's a little bit hard to have multiple conversations with multiple book funnels, but at the end of the day, the extra work is worth it because whenever you send an email, people are just a lot more responsive. So I would say if you're just getting started, you're trying to get your feet wet with self-publishing, it probably would make sense just to go with the one offer and then maybe for your first book or two. But when you start to really ramp things up, then it makes sense to have specialized offers. And you see blogs do this all the time. So they'll have one really good piece of content, and a lot of times they have what's called a content upgrade, where you just click on a link and you can join a person's email list and download the free PDF and whatnot. That's just a way that you're just, that a person downloaded a PDF about how to increase your traffic through Pinterest, so you can pretty much serve them, all right, here's a bunch of articles and a piece of content related to Pinterest marketing, and people will just tend to really take more action because you're basically speaking their language. You understand their pains and frustrations and their challenges, and you can present them with offers that help overcome them.
What was your biggest source of motivation that helped you make revenue from your Kindle books?
Biggest source of I would say the biggest source of motivation is fear. I know that because I was not paying attention to it with my affiliate marketing business on the side. I didn't have a full-time job. I quit my job many years before that. The affiliate marketing business was slowly starting to dwindle because I wasn't paying attention to it. So it was just complete utter fear of, all right, if this doesn't work, I'm going to be like broken, penniless, and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, she wouldn't want to be with me. So it was actually just that's a lot of motivation, is just having that real world consequences to not following through with stuff. And while I don't necessarily suggest that you should go out and quit your job, a lot of times if you make yourself fully accountable for taking action, you will find a way to get through it. Now, I know it's not really motivating; it's almost demotivating. But that's really what worked for me, is just having that anxiety about being able to pull things off.
Fear in certain cases can be turned into a strength. I remember reading somewhere that it's bad to be completely fearless, because then you're not aware of the environment around you and possible things that you could do to remedy the situation. So it's good that you took action on your fear. I know some people use that as a handicap, but you were able to power through with it.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of times what does help is you should take a little bit of time and write down exactly what your fears and try to kind of unravel why you're anxious about something, and just talk to yourself about what is the actual worst case situation. And I think Tim Ferriss does a good job about talking about this in the 4-Hour Work Week, but really just write down what is the worst case scenario of me not being able to pull this off. It's a lot of times it's just simple things like, I'm worried people are going to leave a bad review, or I'm worried that I'm going to get negative comments. And honestly, I get it all the time, and it's not like people come to your house and punch you in the face. It's really no negative consequence to trying something and failing at it. And I feel I failed 9 times out of 10 with pretty much everything I try, even to this day. So a lot of times, if you can really diagnose your fear, you can often just realize that the fears are unwarranted, and they aren't as bad as you would think in the back of your mind.
So the Steve Scott of 2016, it doesn't really have that fear anymore, because he's making 6 figures with all of his books. What's the best part about not only conquering that fear, but also being able to make all of this revenue from your content?
Actually, I hate to say, I still have that fear. It still is a driving force. But I think it's more palpable now because I have a mortgage. I have a wife now. I have a newborn son. So, again,
congratulations.
Thank you. So these are there are literally people counting on me to be able to pull this off. So even though I'm in a pretty comfortable place, there's always those sleepless nights where I think to myself, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? So my remedy for that is I'm just constantly looking for different opportunities. I'm trying to build a more holistic approach to self-publishing, where I'm not just relying on books. I'm just kind of relying on also Google backlinks, trying to build a content website that can feed into the books and also publish on different platforms. Now, I'm not quite sure. I think I kind of talked in a circular way, but what was the initial question? I want to make sure I touched on it.
The best part about conquering that fear and being able to make the revenue.
I don't know if I conquered the fear, so I'm not too sure if I'm a good person to answer that question. But I would say it's always important to stay hungry, to try to find new ways to encourage yourself. And for me, when I get complacent, like what my highest moments with self-publishing, when I really made a ton of money, I got lazy, and I saw the negative consequences of when I got lazy. And so it's always important to try new things and to test new offers, and just to constantly reinvent yourself, because that's how you avoid the kind of lazy mindset.
That mindset could be very dangerous.
Yeah, I definitely seen the outcome of that.
So there are people who they're trying to figure out how to make 6 figures, let alone 4 or 5 figures with their Kindle books. They want to get started. What advice do you have for these people who are trying to reach their breakthrough in that area, but also just like any type of breakthrough, Kindle related or non-Kindle related?
I would say this kind of speaks to some mistakes that I've made down the road. Is you definitely want to write to market. There's actually a book by Chris Fox that is titled, ironically, Write to Market. But you want to figure out exactly what people are buying on Amazon. So you kind of want to find that emergence of where do you have interest and where do you have a little bit of experience and where is their actual profitability. So you want to kind of poke around the Amazon store. You want to find, so obviously you said in general, it's not just on self-publishing, but other platforms. So if you're on YouTube marketing, if that's like your thing, then find out what type of videos people are digesting. Or if you're trying to build a niche site, try to find where are people interested in. There's like a ton of tools where you can do market research for whatever you're trying to put together. But for me, I just find it just simply the best thing to do is just go to Amazon, poke around the store, see what is selling, look at what's called the Amazon bestsellers ranking, and try to find a common theme of a market that gets at least a couple of books under a 30,000 ranking, which is around 5 to 7 sales a day, which is about $10 to $15. So that's just kind of my baseline for a potential market. I know that if I can continuously publish to that market, I can build a platform off of that. So that would be my first step. It's just you want to make sure that you're writing stuff to a particular audience when people have interest. And the kind of negative example of this is worm farming. I found that during my research one day, and there are a couple of books about worm farming. But if you look at the some of the books that are selling in this market, you see that they have an Amazon bestsellers ranking of over 100,000. So that maybe gets a sale a day at best. So that really isn't a good market because there's not the platform for that. So I would say you definitely want to make sure that people are reading what you put together and just try to write to that market. Now, that maybe isn't your lifelong dream. Maybe you have a passion for a particular topic that someone doesn't, that not a lot of people have a passion for, but you really, at the end of the day, you have to at least lay the foundation, generate that sales, and then you can maybe do a pivot where you're writing more about the stuff that you really feel a strong connection with that particular topic.
What is one inspirational insight you want to share with our listeners so that when they think about this insight, they're charged up and ready to take action and write their content?
Inspirational insight. I would say the power of the one thing. That's a popular book by Gary Keller. There's also The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Just the idea there that a lot of times people put stock in the myth of the overnight success that you see someone randomly gain a lot of success, like kind of the lottery mentality that someone just happens into a lot of money. But when you closely examine most people that are successful, it's just they put in the effort, and they put in the effort over a long period of time. My point here is if you can just commit yourself to just taking daily action on a regular basis, you can move mountains. And the best example of this is even if you write 500 words a day, that doesn't seem like a lot to most folks. But if you can commit yourself to write 500 words a day, that's 15,000 words in a month. And that's over that's like 170,000 words in a year. So that's just a lot of words just by committing to just doing this every single day. So the point here is as long as you're just taking daily action, you will start to build on one success after another. And at first, it might not seem like you're really gaining momentum, but eventually you'll get to a point where it's almost like rolling a snowball up a hill and then down the hill. It's tough going at first, but once you kind of reach that crest of the hill, the snowball starts to pick up momentum and starts to build on itself. So I don't know if that's inspirational or not, but I truly feel that if you take daily action, that really is how you can do well long term.
And then it becomes a habit.
Exactly. And that's why I like to write about habits, because I know they work.
So right now I'm going to give you the spotlight, and I know habits are definitely going to get mentioned here. Where can we find you on the web?
All right, I will give 2 places. So if you want to learn more about habit development and learn more about my books, I would recommend just going over to developgoodhabits.com. That's just kind of the place where I build out different articles about various habits, like the walking habit, learning habit, a couple of other things. So I definitely recommend checking out that. And if you want to learn more about self-publishing, there is authority.pub. And that's just kind of the place where I teach in a podcast and also through various blog posts how to kind of run and manage a authority long-term business. So that's authority.pub.
Steve, thank you for taking the time to be on this podcast. It was a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Mark.
What a great interview that was. Steve was actually the first person who strongly resonated with me in regards to Kindle marketing and building the email list. If it weren't for him, I don't even know if I'd have an email list at this point. Steve got to where he's at by taking daily action and by focusing on the actions that yielded the best results. Reading through his income reports made Pareto's principle stick in my head, and it has been guiding me in all of my business endeavors ever since. If you forgot to take notes, then don't worry. We've got you covered with the show notes. Visit markgilberti.com/E6 for those. You can ask me questions over there, which I'd be more than happy to answer. To never miss an episode, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on whatever player you are using. If you are a regular listener and haven't done so already, I would greatly appreciate it if you could give this podcast a review or a rating. Two ways you could do this are through markgilberti.com/iTunes or markgilberti.com/Stitcher. That ends this episode. Don't forget, dream big, achieve greatness, and unlock your potential today. How does over 100 retweets per day sound to you? My free ebook, 27 Ways to Get More Retweets on Twitter, has you covered. I use the methods within this ebook to get over 10,000 retweets every single quarter. To learn more and get access to this free resource, visit markgilberti.com/retweets. This podcast is a production done by Marc Gilberti. For more insights, head on over to markgilberti.com.